As you know, I believe that the biggest Obama scandal to this date is his mishandling of Iraq for personal political gain. The president hurried to withdraw U.S. forces from Iraq in order to score a political victory, and as a result, he's lost the country to terrorists. But what does that mean to your average Islamic radical out there? National security analyst Ryan Mauro says this is the biggest Islamic win since September 11th. Since September 11th, of course, 2001. Ryan is joining us today from New York City. Welcome to Smart Life, Ryan. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
I think that's a big claim. I mean, there are a lot of scandals out there, a lot of terrorist victories out there. Certainly, you look at things that have happened over the past 8 years, and it's hard for me to pick on I guess from the bird's eye view, or if you could take a historic perspective and look at these things. But you contend that there's no victory for the Islamic terrorists that is bigger than this forfeit of Iraq, if you will.
Right. In some ways, it's even worse than 9/11. And the reason is because they've actually been able to seize a large piece of territory in the heart of the Arab world, over 1/3 of Iraq, whereas before their victories were carrying out spectacular terrorist attacks, maybe occasionally getting some piece of territory, but then it being taken back. In this case, what's unique is that they not only seized territory, but set up Sharia law governance. And it's right in the heart of where a caliphate would be reestablished. And they've gotten their hands on hundreds of thousands of weapons, military uniforms, and just by raiding a single bank, $430 million in cash, which is more than a dozen times the operating budget of Al-Qaeda in 9/11. And that's just from raiding one bank.
Ryan, we're really not hearing these details out there in the mainstream media, which doesn't really come as a big surprise to you and me. But how can they ignore it? Because it's their children that are going to be threatened. I'm talking about the folks in media who are completely ignoring this story. It's their children who are going to be affected by these things the same as it would be our children. So that's what I don't understand, is why the silence on these things?
Well, I think it comes from a lack of knowledge of the different layers of this conflict. So the news media will essentially report, okay, there's bad things happening in Iraq. You have a terrorist group, in fact, one that's so bad that Al-Qaeda wants nothing to do with them, taking over towns. But they fail to understand the different layers. So one of the misconceptions that's out there is that this is purely a Sunni Shiite battle, that it's the Sunni Iraqis fighting with the Shiite Iraqis, as they have always done, and that's actually not the case. When the Sunni terrorist group ISIS started taking over Sunni territories, they weren't met with cheers by the local Sunnis. In fact, over 500,000 fled the northern city of Mosul. So this is more about an Al-Qaeda type group just coming in and seizing territory and gaining so much power that both Sunni and Shiite elements of Iraq are having difficulty fighting them.
So Ryan, is there anything at this point we can do to reverse this? Ideally, if things were to change right now, how would that look?
Well, I think that over the short term, you have to have American aerial support. There has to be drone strikes. That's a main weakness that the Iraqis have. We did not build up their air force after the withdrawal. Over the long term, I hate to say it, but you are probably going to have to see American boots back on the ground, not in a combat role, but acting as advisors for the Iraqi security forces. And if you talk to Iraqi officials or you look at Iraqi tribal leaders and what they're saying right now, they are very openly angry with President Obama, saying, look, after you pulled out the American forces, you just abandoned your commitment to the country as a whole.
They really did.
They're just asking for weapons to be sold and basic support that we give to other countries.
Yeah, well, we will sure be back with you as you can keep us posted on this. Folks can find your work at the Clarion Project. Ryan, thank you for being with us. Up next, we're going to go to radio host Steve Deace, and he says the GOP establishment has endorsed Ted Cruz in 2016. You're not going to want to miss this. Getting smarter all the time. Back before you know it. Stay with us.